Hey everybody! Happy Wednesday and welcome to another Bestie Chat. Today I'm going to be interviewing Cheryl, who I actually got to meet in person 2 weeks ago. Hey Cheryl, let me add you in. So Cheryl and I met here in Nashville when she was here speaking at the CD Baby conference. Hello!
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. What are you up to today?
I've been moving my studio, like
Oh yeah.
literally changing rooms. So it's been like the last couple days has been like soundproofing and setting things up. And I can give you a little, I set up my intern nook. Of course, I did like everything else that I shouldn't have been doing, but that's where my interns will be sitting.
Love
And
it.
then I had to make sure that my dog
Yes.
who is being he was at the doggy play thing yesterday, so he's like, "Hi, Oliver." Yeah,
Mhm.
he cares not at all
You're zero,
about this.
0% today.
And then so I've just been sort of there's like a whole little construction zone over here where my microphone studio thing is. So I'm trying to set that up because I've got some writing stuff to do, but yeah, so I'm just kind of in like nesting mode in the studio world.
Amazing. Uh,
Thanks.
so I was telling everybody that we met like 2 weeks ago, was it? When you were in Nashville for the CD Baby
Yes.
conference.
Yeah, was that
Um,
2 weeks ago already? Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm trying to find a good place to put my phone. Hold on. It's so weird you can only do Facebook Lives. Ooh, with the phone. Hold on. And I want to close my door because I just put paneling on my door that is really pretty. Hold on.
Ooh, very nice.
So pretty. Okay. Hi. Sorry.
Perfect. So yeah, 2 weeks ago we had an awesome lunch at Taco Mamacita, had an awesome conversation, and I was like, you need to be on my bestie chat. So here we are.
We
Um,
are. And now we're best friends and we're going to take over the world. No big deal.
yeah. I actually got an email yesterday from somebody and they were like, I saw that you were friends with Cheryl on Instagram, so we should be friends. I was like, okay, cool.
Yay. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I can tell you more about that later. But
Sure.
for everybody who's tuning in, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do?
So my name is Cheryl B. Engelhardt, and I am a songwriter and composer. I used to say singer-songwriter. I should still say singer-songwriter. I'm not touring so much anymore, but I used to tour a lot with the band, my band, and I got my start in the advertising world. So I wrote jingles and commercial music, and I still do that as a freelance composer. I've done a bunch of documentary films. I've gotten some national like a Honey Nut Cheerios commercial and Lysol and Lowe's, a lot of, home products sort of thing. And I have 4 records released as an artist, and the last one was all duets, and I fan funded the last 2 records. And I started getting asked, how do you make a full-time career as a musician? And I started speaking at different music conferences, and I really enjoyed that. And I noticed that at a lot of these conferences, there were not a lot of musicians who were in it sort of sharing what worked for them. And I kind of saw an opportunity for me to sort of step into that role once I started to figure out what was working and what was not working. So I created a couple courses and sort of became, someone who now is also doing this kind of stuff like webinars. And
Yeah.
I have a couple courses. I'm super dorky about communication and pitching, and I have a lot of training in the communication and leadership realm of coaching, which is interesting to me. So I sort of dork out on that stuff and combine it with branding because my background is in advertising. So I sort of saw the inside scoop of that element and how to apply it to an indie musician's career when you've learned all this stuff about Coke and McDonald's and how they brand. So I could geek out on that for ages. So I really wear 3 hats. So I compose for film and for the moving image, I like to call it, whether it's a commercial or web video. I'm a songwriter, and I do this career coaching sort of consultation stuff for musicians. So those are the 3 hats I wear.
Love it. So how did you originally get into music? Which came first, music or the advertising?
Music was always I had started playing the piano when I was like 2. I was one of those little Like I could play anything, kind of annoying kids. But I always thought music was a hobby. So I was in choirs. I love vocal music. I did the a cappella thing at college. Huge a cappella dork. The movie Perfect Pitch was actually based on a book, and the book was written by someone who was in an a cappella group at my college that I sang with. So when I say that that movie is my life, I am not kidding you. Um, so yeah, but it was always a hobby. I actually got my degree in biology, a double degree in biology and music, but music was just always the hobby. And then my first job out of college was scuba diving for the government doing water quality research. So I was like in a neoprene wetsuit every day for 6 months, and I got bored. And I realized that music was the thing that I never got bored of. So I ended up becoming a personal trainer to sort of pay the bills while I was trying to go score some indie films, college student films, a lot of like really terrible horror films. Like, I don't know why like amateur directors want to do horror, but I scored a lot of horror films. And then a friend of my sister's worked at this advertising editing company and was like, oh, you like music? Like they do stuff with music because, so I got a job there and I was a messenger. And from there I met music houses, and then I got a job at a jingle house. So it's sort of, music was always there. And then when I sort of decided to not do science and do music for real, it kind of, things sort of just started to show up. So
awesome. So what does life look like for you? You're doing so many different things, all based around music, but how does that all work for you?
yeah, I mean, I kind of have this compass that when something shows up, is it in line with these three things? And the three things that I are sort of my checkpoints for saying yes to something is there partnership, is there creativity, and is there an opportunity for self-expression? So like this call right now, like you and I are in a conversation, it's not scripted, so it's totally creative. We're in a partnership, and hopefully, sharing this will allow someone else to take some nugget away to go away and be able to self-express themselves through their music or however, and I'm fully self-expressed. And so I think that this was like, yes, of course I'll do this, like a check mark. So that's sort of the compass I use to accept things or not to accept things, sort of big picture. And then I have projects, and every Sunday night I schedule a half an hour into my calendar to actually schedule, hi Natalia, to actually schedule what I want to accomplish this week. And it's funny, I used to tell my personal training clients, like I wasn't a nutritionalist at all, but the advice I would give them when they had food questions for me, I'd say, just write down what you're going to eat before you eat it. Because if you write down 2 Oreo cookies, you're never going to write down 20 Oreo cookies, right? If you write down 2, you'll probably, if you have integrity with yourself, you'll eat 2. And I found that was really, really empowering when it comes to my schedule. So instead of writing, like I would never schedule like 5 hours browsing Facebook into my calendar.
Right.
Like that would never make itself into my calendar, but I'm scheduling things that I know will make a difference. And I look at the projects I have, and if there are deadlines, and I make sure to incorporate that. So I have a really good relationship with my calendar. So it allows me to have that balance and do the 3 things. Like this week, I'm taking on a lot of songwriting things. I have a deadline for a commercial pitch. So I'm working with a producer. And so composing, I don't have a composing project on the table right now. So next week will be all about pitching to try to get more of that. Mm-hmm. So, there's a balance, and usually it's like a week to week balance, because that's just how I schedule my work. So,
yeah. Well, I remember you told me your little Oreo story when we met, and I've been totally thinking about that these past few weeks, just like scheduling out, because I'm all about that too, scheduling out things.
Yeah.
Writing down what I'm going to do. So little things like scrolling on Instagram or Facebook don't get in the way. So I love that little analogy you have.
Yeah.
So tell us more about writing for, what did you call it, for your movie? What did you call it?
Just as a composer? Oh, for the moving image. Right. So, yes. Yeah, so I mean, the moving image, really, it's like a commercial. It's where you have to see what's going on screen and enhance it. So it's not about your song. A lot of times there's not vocals on it. I mean, I've had like 40 TV placements of my songs off of my record, and 75% of those, they didn't use the vocal version. They used the instrumental version. So master your instrumentals, people. But I think that's because when there's on-screen stuff going on, the dialogue is really important. In commercials, the dialogue is really, really important. If you ever watch a pharmaceutical ad, there will never be a song. It will always be some kind of really boring, usually piano and strings kind of music underneath it, because they're trying to get in so much copy. Like they have the disclaimer, like you might die if you take this. Like they have to say all that stuff, right? So that kind of work is really different. You're trying to tell a story. You're like, oh, it's sad, and there's a little bit of a formula to it. Sometimes the client wants you to hit something, like the logo comes up and you have to go bring, like there has to be some sort of musical acknowledgement of something that's happening on screen. So in the commercial world, there's a little bit of a formula to that. As a film composer, it depends on the director, what they're looking for. I mean, I had a really awesome experience with a director who just really got the importance of music, and not a lot of directors do, especially, ones earlier on in their careers. But she loved this music that I wrote for this short film that they did. It was called Roses in Winter, and it was sort of a commentary on gun violence, but it was really well done, and it wasn't in your face. Like you had to sort of analyze it to get the point. And it was really beautiful. And I had all this really cool, like I distorted a piano, and the producers were all like, we don't like the music. We don't like the music. The director was like, Cheryl, the producers don't like the music. I think that every time you had silence should be where, like, she's like, I get why you chose to put music where you did, but let's shift everything. So all the places you have music are silent, and all the places without music, just move your cues over. So I literally took 4 minutes and just moved my cues over. And then the producers were like, oh my God, we love this new score. And it was just a moment of like really the director hearing what I was doing, and just the choices were different. Like she would have made different choices than I made, and she got that there is value in the music. So I love collaborations like that a lot, when there is a give and take, and she's able to sort of see, the director's able to see what you're trying to produce there. So that was a really cool project. I've done a bunch of stuff with College Humor. I've done over 60 scores for their really, some of them real stupid videos, music video parodies and things that some of them, my mom's like, what are you working on? Can you show me? And I'm like, nope, it's too dirty. Nope. No, sorry. But those are fun. They just moved to LA a couple years ago, so I haven't been doing as much work with them. I'm in New York, and they sort of have their writer teams bring on their own composers. So that sort of shifted a little bit the past couple years, but that was really fun. So I don't know what the question was. You asked me about, so tell me about, did you just say, was it a generic question? I think. Okay, great.
Because I don't know if I've ever talked to anyone about this. I did a website for a guy who composes for movies, but
Cool.
he's older, so I never really talked to him. I just did his website. So I've never heard all the background story of what goes on. So maybe tell me, do you more often pitch to these people, or do they come to you more often?
For composing, in the beginning, I was definitely like pounding the pavement. I would go on Craigslist and see who was having auditions for independent films, because a lot of time when they're in the audition process, they're so early on in the process, they're not even thinking about music. Like music is sometimes an afterthought. And so I would go to the audition. If I got a part, I would have done it, but I never got a part. And I would say, hey, thanks for having me. Also, who's your composer? And 2 out of the 3 times I did that, I got the composing job, because I would hand them my card. So I used to do the hardcore pounding the pavement a lot. But now it's a relationship. All advertising, music, the film, they're all relationship industries. And so I go to Sundance, I go to the festivals, I do a lot of FaceTime stuff when I'm in LA and I'm in Nashville. And if I'm not in New York, like I will make the coffee dates and the drink dates. And so now it's kind of like, if you're out of sight, out of mind is kind of the thing. So if you're in sight, you're in mind, I guess. Yeah. So I do get called for that. I mean, the last year I definitely like had a project that I was working on and wasn't doing as much of that. And now I'm like, okay, I have to go reconnect with people. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of like connecting and pitching to people that you already know. There's definitely like wanting to create new connections and grow. And then it's a little bit of people coming to me and being like, hey, I love the work you did on that project. Like, I want you, to work on this project. So it's a combination.
Do you have any must-go-to festivals or conferences?
I love South by Southwest. It's like bananas, and you have to like prepare yourself for the bananas. But for me, as a film composer and someone who works with brands to do their sonic branding. Like I provide the music for the brand. Like anyone that has a video, even if it's a blog, should have a sonic identity, and it's more memorable than a logo and our color and stuff. So I'm like a big fan of that. And so South by Southwest, over 2 weeks, you have the film portion of it, you have the music conference and the music portion of it and all the bands and everything. So I can connect there, and I can also be a musician and make those connections. But then they also have what they call the interactive that overlaps. And that is where there are a lot of marketers and brands and people trying to find out how to, elevate their brand. And so I've actually spoken a couple times on the interactive about sound branding and how to bring in music to your brand to elevate and create familiarity. And that was really interesting. I was talking to people that are not in my world. I like one of my new clients they owned a carpet company, and and they wanted music for their web videos, and everyone has a YouTube channel and shows little clips of all this stuff, and they wanted to have something in the beginning that like pairs up with their logo. I know nothing about carpets, but it was cool to be able to be talking to this kind of crowd of people that are in totally different industries and be able to connect with them. So I love South by Southwest for that reason, that I can kind of get in all sorts of ways. I love the ASCAP Expo in LA. It's usually in April. I mean, I have sat in a room with like just a couple hundred musicians and John Mayer talking to us about his writing process. Like you really are feeling like these huge musicians who have really made it in the sense of made it. Like everyone's got a different definition of made it, but like John Mayer made it, right? Like no one's going to disagree with that. Like he made it. So it was cool to have him talk to us as colleagues, right? Like, oh man, when I did so that's a really cool place to do that. I think there's some smaller music conferences that are on the East Coast that I like, Millennium Music Conference. This year I'm excited. I'm speaking at, in a couple weeks, the Musicpreneur that Suzanne Polinsky is putting on in Delaware. And that, I think they're still selling tickets for that. But the cool thing about that conference is she's taking on this mindset element, which is not something we see a lot in conferences. And, there's a lot of conferences with panels of like talking about how to license your music and how to do this and how to do that. But really like, how can you manage your time and take care of yourself? And so I'm really excited to be part of this conference because I think they're doing all that too, but there's a different sort of self-care angle that I think is really important that we kind of gloss over as musicians. So those are my go-to panels, I guess, or conferences. Sundance is good as a film composer. I've met a bunch of directors that's where the film people go. So if you are into the film world, Sundance in January, end of January is when that is. So
awesome. Yeah. I hope everybody's taking Leslie, looks like Leslie's going to the music fair.
Cool. Yay.
Then Natalia, can you see that about Natalia? What software do you use?
I don't see a question here. So, can you read it to me? I don't know. I see Leslie's and Natalia's hi, but I don't see anything else. Would you let me?
Yeah. So Natalia says, what software do you use? I think she's saying for the sheet music, and is there a standard format? And do you have both music? Now her comment's cutting off on my phone. Let's see. Hey Natalia, how about we come back to you at the end for Q&A? And I'll pull up your full question over here on my laptop so I can read it. Awesome.
Cool.
But my next question for you, we're going to switch over to more of the branding and the authenticity that you and I started talking about a couple weeks ago. And I felt like you had some amazing points, but I had to drop you off and we didn't get to chat. So maybe just dive into that. I think that was your topic at the DIY conference, was to chat on that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The DIY musician conference. That's another one. I really like that one. Yeah, the branding is such like a word, like everyone's saying it and I'm kind of like by that word. Same thing with like your story. You need to have a good story. It's not about the music anymore. It's about your story. And I'm like, about the word story. Yeah. But there is something to it. Like it's a word because there's something to it. And so at my talk at CD Baby, I kind of I asserted that no musicians or most musicians are not really saying anything that matters. And I was like expecting half the room to, there were like 250 people like sitting and like silent. And I was like waiting for them to get up and leave. But we're so focused on like promote, sell. How can you help me? How can I get more fans? Like some version of one of those conversations that we're missing the point, which is that this is a relationship industry now. It's so easy to find information about us as a musician, it's easier to find information on us than it is to find our music. So it has to be about us. And so it needs to be about connecting, not promoting. So if you're focused on connecting, then there's going to be an element of adding content and cross promoting other musicians and just sort of being in the music conversation and getting your fans who may not be musicians, getting them into that conversation too, sharing authentically about yourself. Like I just got back from a trip in Israel and got booed off a stage from a group of Palestinians based on something I said that, like, I mean, it was intense. And it was actually, no, it was a group of Zionists, not Palestinians. So anyway, so I learned a lot there. I was with the choral group, and I kind of was like, wow, like there's a big picture out there that we are so focused on ourselves. And I'm like, the stuff that's making a difference in starting conversations is going to be when you get vulnerable and go out on a limb and all that jazz. So when it comes down to branding, I think that there are two things. One is to be vulnerable, and the intention is to connect, not to sell. And then the second thing is to have the experience of you be really consistent across the board. So that's where the traditional sense of branding comes in, like your logo and your graphics and all the colors on your website should be in line, and you should have your hex code, 6-digit code that's exactly the same everywhere you go. And if you're a goth artist, like you're probably not going to have like white fluffy clouds and whimsical flowers on your website, because that's not who you're trying to attract. So there's an overlap between who you are authentically are and who your ideal fan or client is, and that overlap is your branding. So you don't need to totally not be yourself on your brand, but you need to have some element that will connect with other people so you can attract the right fans. So that's sort of what it comes down to, and I could talk about this for hours.
Oh yes, I do. So what would you say to someone who is just starting to figure out their story and their brand? What are the most important facets that you need to start with?
Story is not just your bio, right? So let me clear up one story for a second. A lot of people think that their bio is like, I picked up a guitar when I was 10, and then I played in this band, and then I played in this band, and then I did this, and it's like everyone has that. Like every musician has that, their version of that, and it's boring, and it's not going to get you on the cover of Rolling Stone. It's not interesting. Your story is the stuff that you sort of slowly tease out to people, and you can put in your bio. But the place to tell your story, like sometimes you think that things that are interesting to you are interesting to other people and they're not, and vice versa. Like you think that things are boring about yourself and they're actually really interesting. So for me, like I was scuba diving for the government and I got bored, so I went to music, and people were like, wait, stop scuba diving. Like, and I'm like, is that interesting? Like, you think that's interesting? Like I was like, bored. Like, so you don't know. So the thing to look at, and here's like the golden nugget, is the transitions. Like find 2 to 4 transitions in your life that got you to where you are, where you were deciding something. Like I lived here and then I moved here. Why? What had you move? Like that's going to be interesting to someone. Like I was scuba diving, then I went into advertising. Why? I got bored. I got bored is actually a theme in my whole story. It's why I do 3 things. It's why I married a mountain guide. Like there's a thing around me being bored. So it's like a theme. And when you look at your transitions, you'll start to see what that is for you. And that's what's going to have other people connect to you. Like I have a lot of musicians that are fans of me because they get my career and they're like, I'm bored too. Like that's something they can connect with, Right. So that's the story. And that was a tangent. I don't remember the original question.
No, that was good. We were just talking about what to do when you're getting started building that. But I always thought me moving to Nashville, I was like, whatever, everybody does that these days. That's not very exciting. And my husband's like, no, you need to tell that. That's so cool. I'm like, no, it's not. I just moved to a new city. But the minute I started telling that story, people were like, I did that too. What did you do when you got here? And so that's kind of how this whole thing has been built, because I started sharing my whole journey, my process. And when I thought it was just like, I graduated college, I had to go somewhere, it turned into this whole other thing of connecting with people. So yeah.
Awesome.
Start telling your stories and figure out what connects with people, I think is how I've done that. So I think that was everything I wanted to ask you, but where can people find you online?
Well, my website with all of my music and reels and all the stuff I do is cbemusic.com. And I do host a couple of courses. I have one on pitching and how to write an email, and there's some email templates that have worked. I did this whole experiment on how to pitch to venues and music supervisors and stuff. And that is all of that lives at inthekeyofsuccess.com, which is sort of my website for musician resources. So inthekeyofsuccess.com, which you can also find through my own website, CBE Music. So that's sort of all you need. And I'm CBE Music everywhere, like Instagram and Facebook, except Twitter. I'm just CBE, which you would think is cool, but I get a lot of people thinking I'm an airport. There's an airport with this code CBE, and Chris Brown Entertainment. I get a lot of people asking about my new beats that I'm going to drop, which I don't ever do. I don't drop beats, but that's okay.
Yeah. Do you have any webinars coming? I think you did a webinar yesterday. Maybe?
I did one yesterday. Yeah, you can still sign up and watch it, but I do one on like 5 different areas of my career that I sort of tackle every week to make sure that I'm moving forward. Branding is definitely one of them. Pitching is one of them. Fan engagement, generating and managing income, and then I call it structures for success, but it's really like time management on steroids. So those are the five areas, and I do a webinar. I run it at least once a month. So if you get on my mailing list by downloading a free checklist, I have a pitching checklist that you can find on my website, and that you'll know about the webinars when I do them.
Awesome. Well, if you are still here, and I'll dive into Natalia's question, but if anyone has questions for Cheryl, drop those in the comments. So I guess what Natalia, you can correct us if I'm reading this wrong. She says, what software do you use for the sheet music, and is there a standard format?
So I'm not quite sure what you mean for the sheet music. I write, so when I'm scoring a film or when I'm writing a song, I use Logic. Logic is Apple's program. It's GarageBand on steroids. I've said that twice today, something on steroids. It's weird. I don't use steroids, everybody. So Logic Pro is what I use. And when I do make sheet music, which I do for the choral group I'm in, and occasionally I'll write out string parts, or, if I'm getting live instruments into the studio for any reason, I use Finale. You can do it in Logic. Logic is a little clunkier with the sheet music, and I like to have like total control. So I just export my stuff as MIDI files, and then you can import it into Logic, into Finale. So those are the 2 programs I use mostly for sheet music, charts, or composing. Yeah.
Awesome. So she has 3 questions for you. So the next one was, do you have both music and sheet music ready to show to new potential collaborators or clients?
I don't think anyone cares about sheet music. I don't. Yeah, sheet music is not a thing. For songwriting collaborators, I personally think that it's better to collaborate with people that are not like you. So in general, I don't even, if someone wants to write with me and, they've gotten some placements or they've done some tours, or they're somewhere in their career that's like comparable to me or a little bit further, that's who I like to write with. And usually I don't even care what their music sounds like. Like I've co-written with rappers and I've co-written with country artists, and I really like bringing in a different style into what I'm doing, because I'm doing the pop thing. So like, yes, I would write with another pop artist. There'd definitely be something there to gain. So if someone was like, hey, I maybe want to write with you, can you send me some music? I would just send them a couple tracks, or send them to my website where they can listen to, they would hear my voice and decide if they want me to sing on it. They can hear, how I play the piano, because I play the piano and everything, and how I write, because most of the stuff early on I wrote or I've co-written. So that's what I would send them. As a composer, you definitely want to have a reel. So I have a reel for film and I have a reel for commercials, because people are looking for very different things if they are a commercial producer or if they're a film producer. So my commercial reel, both of my reels have music on it that's in line with the kind of job I want. So for commercials, like the stuff that comes really easily, the stuff that I really like to write, and I think that I'm the go-to person for a few places, is for vocal, piano, light orchestral, those sorts of arrangements. And yes, I've done jazz, I've done rap, I've produced all these other kinds of tracks, but that's not the gig I'm trying to get. And there's someone way better at jazz than me. There's someone way better at hip hop. So it's like, find what you really love. What kind of job do you want to get, and make sure that you're showing that off first. And that's what I would say. Same thing for film scores too. So that's what I would send out. And I just see Katie's question popped up. I don't know why Natalia's didn't. That's weird.
Maybe because you're friends with Katie. I don't know.
I don't know. No, but I saw Natalia's "Yeah, no problem" comment, so I don't know.
Oh, strange. Well, Natalia has one more question before we jump to Katie's.
Sure.
When you go to a festival or conference, do you have a demo of your work ready? What format? And like only music. So you kind of just said that.
Well, I don't walk around with CDs anymore. I used to, and I used to try to like run up to the stage afterwards, like when I was attending, and like try to hand them like. When people do that to me too, I personally don't listen to music. So when people hand me a CD, I'm like, I know this costs something to make. Like I'm not going to listen to this. And if I do, like it doesn't matter what I think. I like man bands. Like my taste in music is really, I like the Goo Goo Dolls. I like you too. Like it's like you don't want me to listen to your music. Like who cares what I think? And I'm not doing anything with it. Like if you want to work with me, it's because you are committed to your career, and that's what's interesting to me. Then I'm like, all right, let's play. But it doesn't matter what your music sounds like. So I actually don't listen to a lot of my clients' music in the beginning because I don't want to form an opinion about their music because it doesn't matter. So when I was trying to like go to these and try to meet the music supervisors, what I realized is that they are getting inundated with CDs, and never had me handing a CD to someone like made a difference. What made a difference was being like, this is overwhelming. Like I get it. Can I take you to coffee? Like, what are you doing in 2 hours? And that has what had me create some relationships with people. So I don't spend money on creating all this stuff. Definitely have a business card. My business cards have my business cards have my photo on them because they meet so many people, and it's just like it's simple photo, and like they don't need all your social media sites. They should be able to find that on your website. You should have your website, your email, your phone number, period, end of story, and like your title. Like mine is composer, songwriter, consultant. Like that's it. So that's what I bring to my conferences.
Love it. So can you read Katie's comment there?
Yeah. Do you produce your own music? Half and half. If not, do you have a specific producer you work with? When I'm writing for commercials or films or anything, I always produce my own music, depending on their budget. If the thing that I demoed goes final, if they're like, yes, this is the thing that's going to air, sometimes they'll have a budget to be like, all right, let's replace your strings with a live violin player, or let's do live drums. And then, I'll either produce that, or if they're in the city and they want to do it in a studio, I have a couple studios I work with producers there that I trust, engineers that I trust. For songwriting stuff, I actually don't like producing and mixing at all. So I have a couple producers that I work with. Chris Griffin, who's in New York, Scott Feldman, who is in LA, and I love both of them for very, very different reasons. Chris Griffin runs the Pop Vocal Academy, and he does a lot of good work with younger singers that are developing their pop voices. He's an amazing pop producer. And Scott Feldman worked on the show Sons of Anarchy, so he's got a darker sound as a composer and producer. And so, depending on what my project is, I also work with Joey Auk, who's another songwriter. He's done the commercial world thing, and he's also singer-songwriter thing. So I have a bunch of collaborations, and depending on the project, I will loop one of them in and be like, here, I wrote this thing, or, you want to co-write this with me, or if I write it and you produce it, let's split it 50-50. I have a bunch of different deals like that. It depends on how much time I have. If I have a lot of time and I'm like, I'll try to produce it myself, it just never, like, that's not my training. And I wish it was, but I don't. But I can get a demo out. I know how to use Logic. I got good at using the software so that the software works for me, and I can pull in the drum tracks and the loops and know how to just tweak it a little bit to, if you add a 2 octaves higher of a string and lower the volume a lot and put a lot of reverb on it, you can make it sound more real than just the normal MIDI string. So there's like little tricks that I've picked up along the way to be able to produce something as a demo. So I hope that answers. But yeah, anything that I've recorded that you hear on a record, I would say 90% of it is not produced. There are a couple weird like a cappella vocal tracks that I produced myself. I've co-produced everything, right? So like I have control. So if you look at the record credits for my records, it says produced by me and someone else, but who's actually recording and tweaking and mixing is a huge thing. Those are definitely, those are collaborations for sure.
Yes. Well, I see people still coming in to watch. So if anybody has questions for Cheryl, let us know. But otherwise, thank you for hanging out with me today.
Thank you for having me. I love talking about this stuff, and I love this group, and I'm psyched to be here. So, and I'm excited to be working on a couple things with you, which will be surprises for people later. Yeah. So Thank you for having me. And thanks for your questions, guys. You guys are great.
Awesome. Well, for those of you who don't know or haven't noticed yet, I download these videos and upload them to YouTube. So you can either share this with your girlfriends to watch in the group, or this replay will be available on YouTube once I get that uploaded. So
Cool.
thank you, Cheryl, for your amazing insights. And everybody give her a thumbs up and hearts, and let's share this awesome message. So thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, Cheryl.
Bye.